Hello everyone. Before we get to the cast proper, we wanted to take a moment to address how the Brainwaves team feels about the current situation in America. We feel that even though our voice is small, it is important to speak up when events like this occur. As three white guys, we will not pretend to understand what the black community has experienced worldwide during our lifetimes and for centuries beforehand. However, we do stand with the protesters who are seeking justice for the killing of George Floyd and the countless other black Americans who have been unlawfully killed. The United States is being run by a fascist who wants nothing more than to line his pockets and those of his rich white friends. He doesn't care about people, especially those who look different from him. We hope his rule is brought to an end this coming November. Our own country is being run by people who foster the fear of the other to score political points, to divide and make money. Whilst they have not quite sunk to the levels of the Trump administration, it is all too easy to imagine a scenario where they would. For our own part, we will be endeavouring to highlight the work of BAME UK designers more. We are conscious of the fact that we have not had a diverse range of voices on the cast or in interviews. We'll be striving to do better on that front over the coming weeks, months and years. Our goal has always been to lift up smaller publishers and designers, and we also need to add diversity to that goal. We and games are all made better by listening to and understanding diverse voices. It is easy to feel powerless against what's happening in the US and in the UK regarding Brexit at the moment. We hope in our own small corner of the internet that we can do better and that we can help lift up a diverse range of voices through our actions. Black Lives Matter.
This is Brainwaves episode 50, bringing you the best in board game and tabletop gaming news. These are the headlines for the week of the 8th of June 2020. Spiel des Jahres nominations have been revealed. Competitive Magic goes digital. And Gen Con moves online. All this and more on this episode of Brainwaves. Awards season rolls around, and now we have the unveiling of the nominations for what is considered by some as the Oscars of the board game industry. And that is the Spiel des Jahres award, in its 41st year, amazingly. Now, there are three categories in the Spiel des Jahres award oeuvre, I suppose. The Spiel des Jahres itself, which is the game of the year, which is, I guess, more aimed towards family-style games. There is the Kinderspiel, which is games geared towards children. And there is the Kennerspiel, which is considered I believe the official term is the connoisseurs games, basically the slightly heavier end of the gaming spectrum. Now, the Spiel des Jahres nominations for this year are My City by Reiner Knizia, Nova Luna by Uwe Rosenberg and Kurne van Moorsel, and Pictures by Daniela and Kristen Steur. The nominations for the Kennerspiel are Cartographers, a role-player tale by Jordi Aiden, The Crew by Thomas Singh, and King's Dilemma by Lorenzo Silva, Halmar Hash, and Carlo Borelli. Now, the Kinderspiel has nominations which are Photofish by Michael Kalauch, Speedy Roll by Ortis Sulinskis, and Wir sind die Roboter, which is German for We Are the Robots, by Reinhard Staupe. Now, why are some of these game names in German? Because the Spiel des Jahres, funnily enough, is a German-based awards. And these games are based on their German release dates and are judged by a German-speaking panel. Now, the winners will be announced on July the 20th. That is the Spiel des Jahres and the Kennerspiel awards. The Kinderspiel winner will be announced on June the 15th, as the Kinderspiel panel is different from the Spiel des Jahres and Kennerspiel panels. Now, after this a number of times over the past 2 years or so that we've been doing this podcast, I haven't played any of the nominated games.
Neither have I.
Likewise.
So, we're going to go, good luck to everyone. Hope you all do well. And yeah, we'll let you know when the winners are announced. I'm afraid there's not really more I can say about that.
I want to play Cartographers quite a bit, because I really like role-player. So I kind of want to have a shot of Cartographers at some point, which I think there's some good mod on Tabletop Simulator for.
Nice. I've been interested by The Crew and its recent update. The Crew is at Quest for Planet 9. And King's Dilemma is a game that I want to play a lot, but it does need, a consistent group of people and a lot of time.
Agreed. I would also be happy to play that over Tabletop Simulator just for the next couple of months or so.
Yes. Also, a note to people: don't if you have a game on Tabletop Simulator, remember people aren't getting paid for that unless it's one of the official DLCs. Buy a copy of the game at least and support the makers that way.
Indeed. Good point.
So yes, good luck to all those nominees. Ian, I believe you have news from the Wizards of the Coast.
Indeed, Wizards of the Coast have recently announced some major changes to the way Magic the Gathering competitive play is going to be going ahead. Now, obviously, with everything that's going on right now, the ability to host in-person events has rather put a kibosh on the Magic competitive play scene for 2020 and probably into some of 2021 as well, which has led Wizards to announcing some changes to the way competitive play is going to happen. They suspended the Wizards Play Network back in March. That's the network that supports in-store play, Friday Night Magic, all that kind of thing that stores can participate in. And they've now followed that up by announcing that the Players Tour, the Players Tour Final, and the Mythic Invitational events will all be moving to online play through the Magic Arena portal. Now, Magic Arena is their online version of Magic the Gathering. It's effectively free to play, and you can buy boosters and that kind of thing if you want to sort of get cards, just as you would with regular Magic. All outstanding 2020 events have been cancelled. So there are just no Magic events this year, as far as Wizards are concerned, that are going to be in-person events. There's been a bit of a backlash against this because what the effect of this is that WotC are basically making the products that Wizard Play Network WPN stores sell non-essential for those who want to play competitively, because they can just go online and buy the digital versions of these products. So it means that it's going to have a massive effect on the secondary market, like people selling all the stores I know that sell Magic will crack open boxes and boxes of boosters and sell cards on the secondary market. So it's effectively devastating the sales of those things for these stores. And some stores rely on Magic very heavily as an income stream. What are your opinions on this, guys?
I think it's a real shame that they couldn't find a method where physical purchases from local game stores were tied to digital purchases. I know some places were doing an unofficial style Keyforge tournament where you emailed the store, bought a pack from the store, and then they gave you the name of the deck and posted it out to you, at which point you could play it unofficially on that store's game night via an unofficial web portal. And it seems like the kind of thing that the biggest, most technologically advanced company in board games should be able to come together with months and months of notice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially considering they have the portal in place. They have an official, proper portal in place. And we've reported on the last couple of casts of various companies doing this. Like, I think it was last cast we reported on, was it Steamforged? Was it Steamforged?
Yep, they were doing the Steamforged purchase agreement.
Yeah, where you would buy products directly from Steamforged, but Steamforged would give a cut of that, and quite a substantial cut to the store that you would normally buy that product from. So it does seem like maybe Wizards are just going to be moving Magic online. Maybe that's just going to how it's going to be. It would certainly be cheaper for them to produce, I guess. They don't have to print cards anymore.
I was going to say, with the pivot to online, especially this year, it would be encouraging if Wizards of the Coast do decide to make that pivot back to, those friendly local game stores, the Wizards the Wizards Play Network, back to physical stores, brick and mortar stores, friendly local game store, and hopefully it doesn't stay as an online thing, because as you said, there's a lot of gaming shops. In Glasgow, one nearest me, there's one in the centre of town. Those are the only two I can think of right now. And there is the Lucky Sparrow, but I don't know how much the Lucky Sparrow...
They explicitly don't carry Magic the Gathering.
There we go.
Well, I think they carry some boosters, but they don't engage in the WPN at all.
But there's one near me and there's one in the centre of Glasgow.
Yeah.
And they are both heavily reliant on Magic. So
yeah.
I'd want it to pivot back, if only for a semi-selfish reason that there are some game stores that would lose a lot of income, and it could be quite bad for them.
Yeah, it does seem like a bit of a kicking the game stores while they're down kind of move.
But again, that's hypothetical, because right now there's not a lot happening. So hopefully they would pivot back to physical play.
Yeah, we'll bring you more on that story as we hear it. But I'm talking of companies moving online. Ian, the biggest con in the United States has just announced their online presence.
Indeed, this is the news that Gen Con is moving entirely online. As we reported in our last cast, all the big cons have now been cancelled for the year of 2020, and many have announced a digital version of their events. The expo is ramping up now. There's a good interview with Richard Denning on 5 Games for Doomsday, which details some of the important details. Gen Con has announced its online component, and registration will be starting on the 1st of June. Make sure that if you're interested in Gen Con, that you do check out their website, because registration will only be open for a certain amount of time, after which you will not be able to register and access some of the content. They'll be using a variety of platforms, but more on this will be announced as plans are firmed up. We go over some sad news with Ian McAllister.
Back in episode 39, we reported on the industry distancing itself from a designer called J.R. Honeycutt. He had been accused of sexual and emotional abuse by Victoria Mann, and if you'd like to go back and read about those accusations, the links are still in the show notes for that episode. We'll put a link to that episode in this one. It now seems that JR has been given an opportunity to work on the Board Game Design Challenge, doing data entry for that competition. Board Game Design Challenge is a competition run every year. It's a pretty big one. Attracts people from all over the place to sort of make board games and get feedback from designers and publishers right across the world. It's very well regarded. The impression that we've been getting, this is just broken today on the day of recording, 4th of June, is that many of the judges on the competition were unaware of his involvement and have been rightly annoyed and upset by his involvement with this competition. Gabe Barrett, who runs the competition and hired JR to do this work, has put out an apology. My reading of it is that it's a little lackluster. It's a little bit, I've been caught doing this, rather than a decent apology. I don't know what you guys think, if you've read the apology so far.
So his first apology today was very, very weak, and effectively compared this man who's been accused and has admitted to certain parts of abuse as a victim himself of circumstances. However, the later apology he put out admitted that he should not have contracted this man to his work, and that in doing so he lent some of his legitimacy as an organization to this abuser.
That was how it came across to me, and it's a real shame he's made that choice. It's good that he has now apologized. Admittedly, he's had to do it twice. But yeah, it just seems like a kind of insane thing to have done, considering how bad the abuse allegations and the ones he admitted to were. Just just don't hire these people again. Like, he was ostracized for good reason, basically, from the board game community, and there was no reason to hire this guy to do what's a fairly simple task. You could have hired almost anyone else. In fact, you could have literally hired anyone else. Seems like a huge mistake.
A key thing that keeps happening when these stories of abuse come out is that multiple other people come forwards or anonymous accounts come forwards and say, actually, there are more abusers in this industry, but without enough powerful voices and strength of the industry, we cannot move forwards. And to go back and to give more chances to admitted abusers is what's stopping the industry from being able to move forwards.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Anyway, and moving on from unpleasant news to more companies moving to help out you playing games at home.
Indeed, this is the news that Asmodee has embraced print and play and released an interesting copy of Ticket to Ride to print and play at home. We talked in a previous podcast about Asmodee's embracing of print and play and their new website offering these P&P versions of their games, and the total now stands at 29. The new one is one of their flagship games, Ticket to Ride Stay at Home, which is as far as I can tell, it's a new edition of a game in which you play as mum, dad, sister, or baby brother. You lay trains on a board which represents your house and has a new type of route, the family route. I've had a look through the print and play, and it's very much kind of cartoony, crayon style drawing, very family oriented, and looks relatively easy to just print out the 10 or 12 pages on your home printer and get started, which is lovely, actually.
Great, and don't forget, folks, you can also use like print and as I was being reminded by when I was listening to the Shop Sit Down podcast recently. If you don't have a printer at home, there's lots of online printer facilities that'll print stuff out for you and just send it to your house, so you can do things that way as well.
Nice,
absolutely, yeah.
That's pretty cracking. The 29 games that are on the Asmodee print and play site, most of them are standalone games. Some of them are expansions to existing games. But this sits somewhere in between. It's a new version of the game, but you do need Ticket to Ride, base game Ticket to Ride Europe or Ticket to Ride Nordic countries for the numbers of trains for each player.
Fair enough.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because you can't. Well, you could print out train pieces, but that's a lot. That's a lot of cutting, even more than with the cards you've already got.
Massively. It does look like it would be feasible with tokens, but yeah, having your own trains would certainly be easier.
Jamie, you've been getting excited about a new RPG.
Well, you say new. Here's the thing. There is a game called Aguilari. Now, this game was created by Richard Ibanez, and it was originally published in the early 90s. Now, this game is the very first role-playing game completely developed and released in Spain, and for a long time has had the moniker the best RPG not available in English. Now, it's set in the Iberian Peninsula in the Middle Ages. You can be in the Kingdom of Castilla, Aragon, Granada, Navarra, or Portugal. And there's a demoniacal slant to the game, which is demons and angels and other supernatural creatures in between. And your characters can frequent with them, learn white magic, learn black magic, and it sounds pretty grim and wonderful, and it's been deeply researched with a wealth of information on the daily life of the individuals on the Iberian Peninsula at the time of the Middle Ages, and the cosmology of the supernatural at the time, in respect to the game. Now, as I said, this game hasn't been available in English for probably about 25 years, let's say that, but thanks to a recent Kickstarter project, the game has been translated and is now available in English through Chaosium, the people behind Call of Cthulhu and 7th Sea. Now, it's available on Drive-Thru RPG and the Chaosium website for buying in PDF and physical copies. Now, I gotta say, the art is beautifully illustrated by Jaime Garcia Mendoza. It's very that kind of classical, illuminated manuscript style. Some of the creatures, it's wonderful. But as the description on Drive-Thru RPG says, like making a deal with the devil, Aguilari is not for the faint of heart. It's not an introductory RPG for younger players. The realistic historical setting is dark. Some of the artwork is disturbing. So everyone, you've been warned. I am probably going to get this. It intrigues the heck out of me. Ian, I believe, going from medieval, demoniacal doings to super high-tech, futuristic goings-on.
Absolutely. Alexa, play Starfinder. This is the news that the listening devices commonly found in people's homes called Alexa are now able to play Starfinder. If you tell Alexa to play Starfinder, she will launch Scoundrels in the Spike. You've been able to do this from December, but can now do it with 2 additional characters. Starfinder's Scoundrels in the Spike was a one-shot adventure included in the Starfinder Beginner Box, and has been adapted for voice-only play on Alexa. It is written by the former creative director of Starfinder, James L. Sutter, and not only has music and sound effects, but also a full cast of voice actors, which is quite impressive, to be frank. There's clearly a lot of production value going into these Alexa-style games.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's, especially, in a time of lockdown where you're not theoretically able to not sit down around a table with a group of people, they're able to play, role-playing games on on your smart assistant is fantastic. And if you've not played it before, if you're needing some help with it, if you've not played before, I think it's a great introductory idea. And of course, as you said earlier, if one was to say, Alexa, play Starfinder, that would just...
Well, we've now annoyed people across the world twice in one cast.
I've been told I'm a monster many times. That's fine. But apparently this is free, I read.
Yeah.
And there's going to be future adventures that will come along as well, but you have to pay for them.
Yeah, I can see other companies following suit as well. I'd imagine might see Wizards of the Coast doing something with D&D. There was a sort of solo style adventure in the new Essentials kit, if I remember rightly, sort of one GM versus one player kind of setup. So yeah, maybe we'll see something like that come to Google Home or Alexa near you soon.
I really like the approach that you can get them to teach you to play the games.
That's interesting.
That's what I like. Just reminders to our listeners that if you'd like a recording of Jamie telling your device to play all kinds of things and annoy you a lot, our extended cast is available to patrons.
Where I
we just give instructions to Google Home and Amazon Alexas for 45 minutes. Sticking with space, on our last couple of casts, we have been a little critical of Fantasy Flight Games taking down versions of their games on Tabletop Simulator and then suggesting rather esoteric methods of playing, for instance, the Arkham Horror card game via video. Well, they've now actually done something a little bit more decent, and they've released some alpha rules for playing their X-Wing miniatures game solo, called Flying Solo. See what they did there. They are in open alpha testing, so they are soliciting opinions and feedback. And you can go and do some dogfights on your own, which is a really nice thing for them to release.
It is in open alpha testing, I believe, which is
very early.
Alpha testing, very early. So if you want to play it, have any feedback at all, do it and send it to Fantasy Flight Games because they want to make their game rules better. No game company is going to knowingly put out a game that they know is bad. One would hope.
I could go on for a long time about how that might not be true.
Ian, now's not the time.
That's a later episode.
I'm doing a glass 2/3 full kind of thing. Come on, let's it's that positivity.
Jamie, you're right. Now's not the time. Now is the time for a party. It's our 50th episode!
An X-Club party. Sorry. Party.
So we've been going for over 2 years now. In that time, we've released 50 episodes of the regular cast, as well as 9 specials. And we basically wanted to sort of take a moment to look back at the genesis of the cast, answer some questions from listeners and friends of the show, and just chat a little bit about the cast, what you might see from us in the future, and that kind of thing. Many thanks to Bez, Oliver, Kine, and Richard Simpson for some of these questions. So we'll sort of go from the top. We've organised these questions a little bit as they came in. People are asking, why did we start? Why did we all start this? How did the podcast start from Oliver and Bez as well? And assuming we will continue, why will we continue? Yes, this is the last cast.
I've gathered you all here together to make a special announcement.
Yeah, indeed. So the origin of the cast goes back to January 2018. I was thinking about different ways I could do stuff with the Giant Brain, which was still a words only site at the time. I was just writing reviews and doing interviews and that kind of thing. And I started to think about doing a cast around about January 2018, and I realized there wasn't much in the way of sort of news-focused casts out there. There was lots of reviews and actual plays and that kind of thing, but there was no real sort of industry news-focused podcast. And the original idea was to do something very much like the Day-to-Day, something kind of satirical. If you're not familiar with the Day-to-Day, it's a satirical news show from Armando Iannucci, who did The Thick of It and Veep and various other shows. It was starred Chris Morris and Steve Coogan, amongst a variety of other sort of British comedy talent. So I reached out to Jamie and Sam, who were doing a podcast called
The Meeple People Podcast, which was very loosely industry news. We were finding news stories and just talking about them. Basically similar to what we were doing here, except it was two of us. It was a lot longer, and yeah, we were just talking a lot more nonsense, because it's amazing how much we managed to edit out the nonsense here.
That is true.
And if you want, you can still find the Meeple People podcast on YouTube and listen to me and Sam just talking rubbish at each other.
I'm going to Google that.
But it was
later.
from there. It was from there that the Monopoly news came from, because I think at that time we managed to find all the Monopoly news, and it just became a regular thing.
Indeed.
And I brought it over here.
I hadn't realised that came from there.
Yeah, no, it came from there. That started because I met Sam and Ian when I went to Edinburgh to study at university, and I hung around the Tabletop Games Cafe, which, we really enjoyed. And I turned to Sam one day and went, I think we should do a podcast because we talk a lot. I wish I was joking, but that's pretty much it. And it kind of went a little bit from there. And then we stopped for a while when I came back to Glasgow. And then Ian got in contact with us.
Yeah, so we did a pilot. I think we did a pilot in March of that year.
I'd say about
a
March.
Pilot that no one will ever hear, because we shared it amongst our friends. I'm not even sure I've got a copy of it still. I think Jamie might. It wasn't great.
It was very straight,
Yeah, it was very straight, and we tried to do it sort of scripted, and it was a bit stilted and didn't really allow us to be ourselves. So we relaxed the format a little bit for the first proper episode, which, and I'm not making this up, went out on the 1st of April 2018. That was when we released our first episode. And yeah, it sort of snowballed from there.
And now we're at episode 50.
So after about a year or so, Sam left the cast. Sam was our original sort of editor and one of the co-hosts as well. I took over editing duties at that point and wanted to bring in another person, because one of the reasons this show's a 3-person cast is so that if someone has to go on holiday or whatever, the cast can still continue. Like, the other two can do the cast. So I originally we were doing some guest stuff.
We did for quite a while.
We did some guests for quite a while, and then basically, so when we sort of started to move into the start of this year, when lockdown and that sort of stuff.
It's because I was going away on tour.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah,
and it would have left you, Ian, by yourself. So we reached out and see who would like to, and Ian is so wonderful, and actually decided to come and join this weird group that we find ourselves in. Ian, what's your experience been? This is not this is not a performance review. It's not like, tell us about your experience. Anything you'd like to say to us about how we run the podcast. Anything
your answers are being recorded for training purposes.
Is this the end of the interview? Can I finally get?
Do you have any questions for us?
First off, thanks so much, both of you, for asking me to be on this. I have genuinely had a great time so far. It's been very strange going from, first off, hearing both of you, because I mainly listen to podcasts when I'm driving, so hearing both of you from somewhere nebulous in my passenger seat to meeting you at cons and just around, I think, like, if we open a board game, at least one of us just appears into the ether. And
I think I met you for the first time, Ian, at the Lucky Sparrow press night. At least that's what I feel like. I feel like it was the first time I met you.
That might...
It might have either been then or...
Maybe a Dice Roll Cafe just kicking about?
I only started going to Dice Roll in early 2019. So
I think he might have been on the cast before I met him. I think we'd interacted online. I'm not sure we'd interacted in real life before.
I think so,
the cast. I think that might be the
Scottish
case.
board game Twitter scene is basically us.
It's us, the Unlucky Frog, Richard, and a couple more. Come on, that's not fair.
Yeah,
Mark McKinnon.
And not forgetting the first player token. Come on.
Oh yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, so it's been a really lovely journey from just hearing the two of you, or whoever, just chatting away in my car, to playing games on a that was such a wonderful start to the year where we're like, okay, we're going to actually have a massive big board games day once a month. And it started so
great.
well. And then that whole pandemic thing just crushed in.
Goddamn viruses getting in our way.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting to see the structure behind the podcast and how much research goes into every single episode and all of that. And I just want to say, my board game sustainability design project, which was part of my final year of uni, was handed in on Friday. And
Woo.
I had to do one slide on the industry of the specific project in which I was tackling. And I basically just wrote the slide and then put sources at the bottom because I was like, yep, this is my bi-weekly research. Fitted into 80 words. That was horrendous.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, we're planning as to if we're going to continue. I believe we are. We've got a good flow going now.
I'm having a great time.
Yeah. We've missed the occasional week where we put out like one of our Idle Thoughts cast or something else, but everyone needs to take a break now and again from this kind of content creation, and that's just the way it goes. But yeah, I've got no plans to slow down. Certainly, we're going to still be releasing a news episode every fortnight or thereabouts. We might change things up a little bit as time goes on. But certainly, the cast has evolved a lot over the years, and that goes to sort of the next question that Oliver was asking us about, which is basically who came up with the idea of producing the podcast like a radio play, and he sort of meaning like the sound effects and where we go to different rooms in our HQ, the sort of segments and that kind of thing. Before we started recording tonight, I went back and listened to some of the older casts, which was a slightly painful experience for me. as I listened to like how we've evolved.
I will say I've not listened to a single podcast since I've joined, so you might have just killed off one of your like regular listener numbers by asking me to be on.
Oh, we pick up regular listeners all the time.
No, and as I said, you said that, Ian, and as I said to you, and I can't remember where I got this from. I'm afraid I can't cite this, but it's your right as an artist to make bad work. You cannot make good work without first making bad work. Making bad work does not mean you're a bad artist, okay? It means you're
Absolutely
persevering.
Not. I believe Richard Simpson had a tweet that went out that was went very viral, very much along those lines.
Yes, absolutely.
So I went back and had a wee listen. I think episode 6 was when we started to introduce the idea of the studio. Episode 6 was our first sort of con experience. That was when we went to UK Games Expo in 2018, and we had a sort of thing where Sam was in the studio alone and then left, and then Jamie and I did the cast on our own because Sam couldn't make it that week. Basically, and it sort of alluded to the idea of there being a studio and doors were being opened and closed and that kind of thing. Episode 8 was when we first introduced a new area of the HQ, RPG Corner, with the fantastic sting that it has. And then I think things kind of snowballed from there. We did sort of, at the start of the cast, we did sort of skits and that kind of thing as well, because Sam was a much better audio editor than I am. So we did like sort of little audio reviews and that kind of thing. And that's changed over time as the Brainwaves HQ became a thing. That we've sort of focused any ideas for skits and sketches and that kind of thing around that central idea. So like the Garden for Archaeology News, which we did for a little bit.
I mean, I think from my perspective, a lot of my input in that area just comes from I've grown up a lot listening to radio, especially radio comedy. So I'm a fan of kind of surreal stuff. So just when we were just suggesting, you know, funnily enough, a lot of our stuff isn't scripted. You might be able to tell.
Jamie, don't tell them that.
Well,
I'm reading from a script here right now.
I was going to say, is it scripted or not? Nobody knows. Hey. Let me just. Sorry. Let me go back on that line. No. And yeah, occasionally I've just gone, oh, let's go out to the garden because it's a beautiful garden, and oh, look at these lovely chairs and RPG Corner. I think RPG Corner, the aesthetic for it came from Sam's wonderful smoky jazz music that he made.
Every time I edit that part of the cast, if it's just an RPG Corner, it makes me smile. I mean, we had a couple other things. We had like Bunker 42 for a while, which was a sort of prelude to us having guests on, because we sort of did sort of interviews with people about the one board game they would take into the apocalypse and why.
Yeah,
kind of thing. A little bit 5 Games for Doomsday.
Yeah, that combined with Desert Island Discs.
Combined with Desert
you
Island Discs.
You can show what I grew up listening to.
Indeed. We've had other bits and pieces sort of come and go over the years. We had the sort of mastermind chair thing. We've fiddled around with all sorts of segments.
I want to do the mastermind chair thing again.
I'm sure we can bring it back. Yeah, that's the thing. We can always bring these things back. And now we have a sort of central imagination space, I guess, so we can sort of like focus it around that idea. And it's been quite useful. It's a good thing to focus on.
I hope it's been all right, Ian, that you've just you came into the podcast. I know you were aware of it, but just having us kind of just foisting, right, make up, we're talking nonsense about you being the intern. On you go.
Yeah, that was a wonderful first experience. That was genuinely very enjoyable.
Yeah, no, and you handled it very well. So Oliver then asks where we find our news. So like we start planning each cast basically just straight after effectively recording. Like tonight I'll put out a new doc for episode 51, which will start filling with news for the next cast. And that stuff basically comes from pretty much everywhere. Our main sites are things like ICV2. I've set up Google Alerts on my Gmail for board game news. We get things from like Dicebreaker, Tabletop Gaming Magazine, Dice Tower, Board Game Geek.
Shut Up and Sit Down.
Shut Up and Down. Anywhere, really. Like everywhere we find news. If we're always on the lookout for interesting tidbits. And especially we try and find things that are maybe a little bit out the sort of mainstream of the board game industry as well. Little bits of like board games creeping into the mainstream or being reported on. Like we're reported on like hospitals using sort of mega games and that kind of thing to train staff and that kind of thing. We like to report on that kind of news as well.
Now, and we have done it in the past, but we decided at the beginning we weren't really going to be this board game's coming out, this board game's coming out, this board game's been announced.
Yeah.
Now we have done that. Of course we've done that. Generally we've tried to expand upon it for a reason other than, oh, by the way, this board game's coming out.
Yeah, we generally report new releases if there's something to say about it.
I mean, with that being said, I'm sure there's ones that we've done where we've just gone, there's a new board game coming out. I put it in because I like it.
There's always an element of that, certainly.
Yeah, and we understand that, sometimes news can age quite quickly. Because, we put these out every 2 weeks, and we might get some news. Say, we're recording on a Thursday today. Now, we may get some news on Saturday, let's say, that's going to be important. Now, when it comes to, 2 weeks on Monday, when the next podcast comes out, that's already going to have been and gone. But we're probably still going to include it in because it's important.
Yeah, the idea eventually evolved to basically being like, the idea is to try and make the cast sort of your go-to source for news, pretty much, or the important news. We try and filter through sort of, like Jamie says, we try and filter out things like new releases and that kind of thing for the main part, and really just sort of concentrate on stuff that's actually important to how the industry works and conventions and all that kind of thing instead.
Now, take an example from what we've talked about earlier in the podcast. We talked about Ticket to Ride Print and Play. Now, on the surface, that's Ticket to Ride has brought out a new version. Well, yes, it is. Yeah. But also, it's Ticket to Ride, but it also ties into what we've been talking about earlier with the print and play boom from Asmodee.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's okay. I don't know about you guys. I think that's
absolutely
fair. Aguilari, the same thing. Oh, there's a new RPG coming out. Well, actually, it's not new. It's old. It's never been translated into English before. So that's interesting. Yeah. And it's not something generally you would have heard of.
That's it. Like, trying to draw people's attention to interesting bits of news. Bez was asking us whether there's any news that we've reported on that was bigger than we thought it would be, or vice versa. Jamie and I were having a wee chat before we started the cast, and I can't really think of anything entirely. The only thing that really came to my mind was we did a special on an app called Dized, which was going to be a sort of tutorial app for board games. And they sort of showed off at UK Games Expo and various other cons for a couple of years. And then it sort of had a lot of trouble coming to market. And it blew up in a different way than we thought. I think they are now out. The app is now out with its tutorial tools and that kind of thing. But it wasn't the story we thought it was going to be at the start. But there hasn't really been anything else. Mainly because a lot of the news we talk about, let's face it, is still board game hobby news. So it's not like crazy important.
With that being said, things like Kickstarter unions, that was a big story.
That's true.
No matter what.
That's true, actually, yeah.
Yep.
The first thing I
actually, Kickstarter Unions is a good one because that has become much bigger than we thought it would be. That's become like the first tech company in the United States to unionize.
Yes.
So that's huge. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I retract what I said.
My first thought of something that maybe thought would be bigger. We thought it'd be bigger than it was. My initial thought was the announcement from Komini or Not last year about Taburu, which was the
I totally forgot about
integrated gaming table.
Yeah,
now,
that was presumably going to be shown off at cons this year. And
yes, it was. I wasn't sure about it because I hadn't heard anything. Because I remember we were discussing it at Tabletop Scotland, and as it turns out, the Kickstarter campaign for that was actually going to happen this year, and it was going to be shown off at conventions this year. And funnily enough, that ain't going to happen.
I still think it's a giant waste of space.
Oh god, yeah. I ended up writing a bunch about that as kind of evolving tech in the board game sustainability issue.
Yeah.
And I was very much expecting to do my research and find, okay, here are the press releases from CMON saying that this is going to be massive, that it's going to reduce waste by this much, and that it's going to take 2020 by storm. And then literally all I could find about it, for the most part, was their 2019 single-page announcement on the CMON website saying Taburu is coming out.
Yeah.
And that's it.
But again, that's... I think that was meant to be this year's big plan. It was an announcement last year.
The history of companies like doing one thing and then like doing something technology based is not always great.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see what happens. But yeah,
Ian,
not holding my breath on that one.
Ian, what do you think? Was there any news that either you've covered while you're here with us, or any news that you vaguely remember that we covered in a previous podcast?
We've covered a lot of news. I've forgotten a lot of it.
I know, but yeah. I'm throwing it over to you because I've talked a lot.
Indeed.
I'm going to be frank. It has to go to the Kickstarter unionizing.
Yeah.
I very much thought they were going to have maybe not even a close vote where they voted not to unionize, and that would be it. End of.
Yeah.
And then
just fizzle. Yeah.
Yeah. The way it developed with the pandemic and everything is just such a huge example of why they needed a union and hopefully how it's going to impact the entire industry going forwards.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I for some reason I just blanked on the Kickstarter union. Yeah, that has been a massive story. Yeah, fantastic for them. I was really pleased that they managed to get that done. Moving on, Bez also asked what the most enjoyable part of the podcast, one of the sections, or maybe the recording session, or something else. Personally, for me, it's recording. I love recording with you guys. It's always good fun. The sort of preparation beforehand can be a little bit laborious because we're sort of trawling through the internet looking for cool stories and interesting things to bring you. But recording is, even if I don't quite feel like it, like once we've sort of done our little bit of, we always have a bit of a chat, maybe about 30 minutes before we record, folks, just to organize the cast and who's going to talk about what. And then once we're into it, it's like that sort of slight stage fright thing, I think. Like you suddenly get into it and then you get going. For you guys, is that the same, or do you enjoy other bits of the cast instead?
Bang on. Absolutely bang on. Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. It's just it's the chat beforehand where we kind of again getting in that headspace of right, let's talk about this. We know what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about any issues we're having with the way we phrased it, or any issues with it that we might want to bring up during a particular new segment. A lot of messing up, mainly from me, and it's just a good laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do enjoy the mistakes. They're great.
And if you'd like to hear more mistakes, you can give us some money to listen to mistakes in the extended version of this cast.
Yeah. Would you like a worse cast for more money?
That's not how you're meant to say it, Ian. It's extended radio gold.
I don't know about radio. It's audio gold, definitely.
Well, you know what I mean. One more from Bez. Is there more personal gratification as part of the process or in the responses? Like, basically, do we get more personal gratification out of putting the thing together, or actually like knowing that people listen to us? I mean, every week I'm still shocked that people listen to us. It just that never gets old. I think it's like seeing like people download the cast when we put out a new one, and like seeing the sort of slow, like I've got the stats from over the years, seeing a slow sort of tick up to sort of, on average, we get about 100 on average over the years, over all the casts we've done, we've got about 143 downloads per cast. Now, that's not a huge amount, obviously. Like, there are much, much, much bigger casts out there. But it's more than enough to keep me happy to keep going, and knowing that we have a listenership out there that hopefully rely on us a bit to bring them industry news. And we're so grateful to everyone who listens to the cast, and to those patrons who give us a wee bit of their money to help us support the cast, to help us run the website and run the Podbean account and everything like that. It's just stuns me every single time that anyone gives us any cash for it, or just listens to the cast or tells us they like it. It's great. Really love it. Love that kind of feedback. It's fantastic. And if anyone who listens to any podcast or reads any site, please tell those creators you like them, because it's really hard to get that kind of feedback, and it's always lovely when you do. Every single time.
Agreed. One mini thing I liked about listening to the podcast was just how much it tied together the kind of 2 weeks of various news that I'd been slowly digesting and percolating in my brain, and coming onto the podcast and kind of sifting through the stories and then actually recording them is just a continuation of that process. It's really nice to get that kind of bookended, okay, this is the news that's happening, and just to kind of keep on top of that is just quite neat, basically.
Yeah, I think so. What about for yourself, Jamie?
I am always amazed, just that, as you said, in not a kind of, people are listening to little old me. Oh, it's amazing. No, I'm honestly just dumbfounded that people enjoy listening to it. People give us money for it, because it's a bit of fun that I do with you guys, and it's fun to talk about it. I got into the board game industry. I say that I started being interested in board games about 2013 at the end of the year, and I didn't expect within a couple of years to have more games than I really should have on my shelves and be doing this. But it's an industry that is growing and thriving, and in many ways has great potential for good, and sadly also great potential for evil. So it's trying to keep people aware of what's going on, to help. I'm not going to have a grandiose idea of shaping the industry, but just to let people know what's going on. And yeah, if people listen to it, it's amazing. People actually want to listen to my nonsense, our nonsense.
I forgot to say that my favourite part of the personal gratification is actually speaking to designers and playing through games with designers on Tabletop Simulator, and just chatting to them about their games on the podcast recently, and just finding out how they design their games and what they're thinking about when they design them. That's been such a privilege to just chat to and enjoy.
Finally, we have a question from Richard from We're Not Wizards. Is to you and to you, Ian, and you, Jamie. Is there now a continual power play between the both of you over who gets to buy me lunch?
So I think I said this on Twitter, but Jamie has graciously conceded and now allows myself to buy both you and Jamie lunch most days.
Unfortunately, this is fictional Brainwaves HQ lunch. No one actually buys me lunch.
Very much.
It's
fictional.
Disgraceful.
Fictional dollars.
Fictional Brainwaves money.
Yep.
I let you do that because you have been so kind.
Anyway, folks, we're going to wrap this up. Look, we're just so grateful that everyone out there who listens to the cast, who shares the work, who reads articles on the site, who support us over the years. It's been an absolutely fantastic journey. We're going to be around for a good while yet with more nonsense. We're hoping to bring some guests back over the course of this year. We've got some ideas to get you folks involved. We've got an idea to do some sort of vox pops, basically like interviews on sort of faux interviews on the streets with listeners, and we'll be putting out like news articles that you can comment on, like send us little audio clips to. We're going to see how we can work that in over the next sort of couple of weeks. I'm going to try and get some of that out, and we'll maybe see a return of some old segments. I would imagine we haven't had an RPG corner for a while, or been out in the garden for a little while, so I imagine we'll see some of those come back over the next few months. But just a huge thank you to everyone who listens to the cast, who supports us in any way or form, whether that's giving us $1 a month or merely sharing the cast and talking about it and letting us know that you love it. It's just incredibly gratifying, and we thank you all. Well, before we leave, folks, we'd just like to give our usual shout-outs to our executive producers, Lucky Sparrow Gaming Cafe. They've been incredibly generous with their time and money over the last couple of years, and we hope they are doing well, and hopefully they will be back in operation in the not-too-distant future. As always, you can join them in being a patron by going to our Patreon page and dropping us $1 a month. It just helps us maintain the website and the cast. We have also Amazon affiliate links in some of our pages. And if you go to our support page, you'll also find sort of friend links to some of the electricity companies and that kind of thing I use. You can help support us that way if you are looking to change suppliers and that kind of thing. So thanks very much for listening. As we've said in sort of this retrospective of the cast, we're so grateful for everyone's support over the years. It's been fantastic. If you like the cast, if you're listening to us on a regular basis, really the best way to help us out is to share us around. And please drop us a review and rating on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. And you can follow us on all the usual places: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, our website, and email us with anything you'd like us to cover in the cast. If you've got tidbits and news, that kind of thing, do get in touch. We'd love to have some sort of mailbag start up on the cast at giantbrainuk@gmail.com. Thank you everyone for your support over the last couple of years, and we're going to be around for some time to go. Bye-bye.
Here's hoping. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.